Alright, here it is, the video on scanning. I'm going to break down the very basics right here for y'all, and hopefully it helps. I tend to scan with 7 probes, so I'm sitting here in a wormhole and I'm going to decloak and let my probes out. One thing I make sure to try to do every time I decloak lots of probes is make sure I'm moving in a direction. That way, just in case something's around, something sees me, something tries to scan me down, even if they do while I'm not paying attention and launching probes, I can, most likely I'm not going to get caught that way. I get my probes out, cloak back up. Sometimes that's something you might forget, but make sure you do it. Alright, I'm in a pretty small system to scan, pretty easy. So first thing I do is go ahead and center the probes on the sun, I guess. Once I do that, I kind of notice here, I need to have enough to cover the whole system, so 16 AU is plenty. Combat scanner probe can go out to, 32. But for this system, it's too easy with 16. Good, start as small as you can to cover the whole system, and you're better off. This is pretty much the easiest way for me to do it. I use a cross pattern with 7 probes. So you'll see how I set it up. Basically, you move your probes out to an equal distance from the 4 corners, north, south, east, west. And then using 7, you're going to go one up and one down below. Since Crucible basically used to be able to scan with 4 probes and basically be just as powerful as 7, but they changed the algorithms or the mechanics, the math. So now 7 actually makes it easier, or the more probes I guess you have out, the easier stuff is to scan down. So I use 7 now. It also makes it easier to pinpoint a target for me, so it's definitely a lot faster. But anyway, once you get it all out in your nice pattern here, trying relatively equally separated from each other, you're pretty much ready to go. Get your first scan and see what comes up. Of course, anytime you scan, you're going to get your anomalies pretty much no matter what. One probe across the whole thing, and it's going to pull up all your anomalies. If you're doing, scanning for whatever, it's going to show anomalies at 100%. Easiest thing, just ignore them if you're not looking for them. And then you're left with everything else. Right now, I'm just showing also. I'm using a Core Scanner Pro, so you're not going to see ships or structures, but you'll see uh, you'll see signatures, right? Basically wormholes, combat sites, different things like that. So I'm gonna pick this one here down here to scan out and start from there. Pretty much first thing you do, making sure to push shift. You're gonna move your probes to center on that red dot there. All right. Pushing shift allows you to move all the probes in conjunction with each other, because the big thing about scanning is keeping everything online. See how my lines are all my probes are lined up, directly in line with each other. That's what you need to accomplish. Otherwise, you're gonna have shitty results. Easiest way, you can move probes individually, by just grabbing them and moving them around, but that tends to get you out of line. So the best bet is to use the arrows when you're moving the probes around. Line them up, try to keep them in line, and that's how to do it. So I told you about shift. Shift moves the whole group. Alt will move the probes in relation to each other. So I got this nice little, super freaking cross setup here, and I want to move them all to get closer to this target. So I already scanned him down to 10. He's right there, so we're gonna go ahead and scan him again. And we're gonna use Alt once we do it. So we drop it down to 8. The probes are now smaller. Their range makes it stronger. So you hit on Alt. And yeah, you can pretty much all align all the probes easily on top of each other. and use shift to move the to center on the whole group and scan again. And from that point on, you just pretty much repeat that process over and over until you get 100% result on your scan. So now I'm good with 8. I'm gonna drop it down to 4. Let's shift my alignment, tighten up my probes on it. I was trying to make that pretty little cross, little thing in the middle. And then of course centering your center probe on your signature spot in space. Now bear in mind that spot in space is not the actual exact spot. When it's a red circle like that, it's got it's got deviation, so it could be anywhere in that general area. So don't, some people get confused when their signature comes up and they're like, well, it was here and now, it shows up over here on the next scan. But in this case, once it turns yellow, that's pretty much the spot. Once you get it to the point where you scan it to yellow, that's generally it's not going to move after that. So you just at that point need to get your AU size down so it brings up your scan strength to actually get 100% on it. You keep on doing the same things we talked about earlier. Lining the pros, making sure you're good, making sure you're good in all directions, and scanning it down. Usually if you're in some kind of hostile area while you're scanning, I usually hit descan a lot. Make sure anything crazy comes up. See what else is in space. Maybe somebody else is out there trying to find you, or who knows what. But there you go. Look, we got a wormhole at 93%. Go us. We also got this other a site right there that, if we were going for that, it's a grab site, but whatever. After 25%, usually you'll find out what group it's part of, and then after, don't quote me on this, but like 50%, I believe, you'll see the actual type or the name of the site. It might be higher than 50%, but it doesn't matter. It's all relevant. I'm kind of noticing I'm a little bit out of alignment, so I'm going to adjust that guy right there. It doesn't make that much of a difference, but the more you do it, the more you get used to it being lined up a certain way. So we're at 93%. We should be getting it right here pretty easily. You can see there's a tag there because I've already bookmarked this spot on a previous scan. But you know, it's good to know. Once you bookmark something, at downtime that'll reset the signature, so you'll have to rescan it again in a wormhole. Kind of sucks, but whatever. So there we go. I got my unstable wormhole. I'm gonna warp to it at 100, just because I don't know what's in this wormhole. I might get killed. I don't want to die. And you know, me and you guys know me in wormholes. I tend to, yeah, die, but not on contract. One thing is, when you're bookmarking things, you can do it, but know that if you bookmark something from this screen here before you actually land and see it, you'll have some deviation in your actual pinpoint. So if you were to warp to it from this, you're not gonna necessarily see it. Notice I landed at 103 km and I warped at 100. Same idea. So if you were to save this location as your wormhole and then later warp to that bookmark that you created, it would put you'd have a certain deviation from the actual hole. So you're not going to land at 0 every time. You'll land between 0 and I think 5K. Um, yeah, it's a good way to die when you think you're warping to a wormhole at 0 and you end up 3 or 5K outside of it and can't jump. So just be aware of that. I always warp when I'm trying to save a bookmark or whatever. I warp to the site, save the location, name it something exciting. Since I've already scanned this down. just gonna cancel it, but you see what I did. I saved it with the date, the time, what it is, and nullsec exit. Um, and that's pretty much basic scanning there. So those of you that don't know, that's the basic way of scanning.